Hi, I'm Adam Dunlap. I'm running for president of the SAG-AFTRA local Portland, and I thought I'd make a video with a very audacious goal. The goal is to try to unify and bring healing to the Portland SAG-AFTRA community. Now, the reason I thought this video could work is because, number one, if I'm chosen as the president, then I think people need to know where I stand. And it's very difficult to understand those things when it's just like written, curated social media posts versus seeing someone communicate, in real time, stream of consciousness type. And if I'm not chosen as president, I can see warring sides and I can understand both sides of the perspective really well. So I thought I would literally go through and break down some of these things. So first of all, if you're a SAG-AFTRA member, a Portland local, this video's for you. If you're not, then it's probably not for you unless you just want to know about the Portland drama and maybe learn about empathy or conflict resolution or something like that, because I think I'm pretty good at those things. I have a couple notes, but just to make sure I don't go completely off the I just start rambling about geopolitics and macroeconomics sometimes if you just let me roll. So I'm trying to keep a little bit focused. And then here's what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to explain why I ran. Secondly, I'm going to explain the one thing that I think is the most powerful driver of change in the Portland SAG-AFTRA membership, community, and productions here in Portland. It's very different from, I think, anything you've probably heard anyone say. And then number three, I'm going to literally go through all the biggest dramas and personalities of this election and kind of explain both sides of the perspective with the hope of bringing understanding to people's perspectives, and through that trying to find cohesion and unity, whether or not I'm president, because I think I'm much more interested in a successful union than I am in being a leader in the union. I'd rather just be a great actor than be a leader. Personally, some people are the opposite, but I just want to act. So I very much care about the union, and I very much care about our Portland local, and that's the most important thing to me. So I thought I would just go through and explain all those things. I'm going to talk about Michelle Damis, MaryMac, Scott Rogers, the SAG-AFTRA Portland page. That's been some drama there. Erik Nicolaisen, who's running for VP. The trolls and the minions. That's a funny topic. And then also, the last but not least, my role in the controversy, for which, maybe I owe an apology to some people. I'm not sure. So we'll talk through that as well. So I'm not going to do any edits, just stream of consciousness. And well, that's my long intro. My arm's getting tired holding this phone. Let's get to it. Oh yeah, I forgot. I kind of jumped ahead to the drama. My arm's getting tired out here. Jumped ahead to the drama. Why did I run? That's what I might have to edit this first. If this is the one thing I'll edit, I'll put it first. I'm not really sure why I ran. I felt compelled to run. I'm an actor. All I care about is acting. And I've been super blessed to have some success lately with a few national projects, a guest star on Law & Order Organized Crime, a recurring role on Beyond the Gates on CBS, and a great film coming up as well that I had a really strong supporting role in. And I just felt like I have a national experience, a savvy, a strategy, an empathy, a heart for this union and for this craft. And I felt like I could serve in a really helpful way. But part of that also is that it's just a servant. I'm a servant leader if I'm chosen. And so from that perspective, it's I'm not going to fight to be your servant leader. If you want me to serve, if you want me to serve you, if you want me to make dinner for you, I'll make dinner for you. I'm going to do it for free. If you want someone else to make dinner for you, have them make dinner for you. You know what I mean? I'm an actor. I just want to act. And so I came into the election thinking I'll probably just send a campaign email and make a couple posts and that'll be it. And now it's all this drama. And I'm what is going on? Who even wants to be, why would anyone want to be president of this Portland local? I heard someone call it a dumpster fire. And I was well, they're probably right. It seems like a dumpster fire. They just no one's even focused on acting. They're focused on these little, pedantic little interpersonal issues and whatnot. And it's I just need to go back to acting. That's all I'm doing anyway. That's all I care about is acting. So I think I approached with the purest heart possible, which is an option to serve the union. An option to serve our local, and that's what I'm trying to do. And if I'm not chosen, I got a baby on the way. I got my firstborn coming up in 2 months. It might be better for my life not to be president. I don't even know. I just felt compelled to say, yeah, I'm an option. Would love to be a servant leader and help build community and focus on the craft and what we do in productions in our industry. But if you want Michelle, awesome. Michelle's smart, she works hard. There's some issues maybe, but I think they can be resolved. So that's kind of my thinking. Now, number two, the second part I said I was going to say was, what is the most powerful aspect to Portland that can change Portland and change Portland SAG-AFTRA? There's no doubt in my mind. The campaign has helped me realize this: unity and community. There's no way we are going to change Portland if we're not all working together and aligned. Like you want a buzz in the city. You want people to love the board members. You want people to love. You need the community. There just has to be love. Like the love is going to attract the love, right? I believe there's a law of the universe, and it says what we put out is what we get back. It's like if you want Portland to be a magnet for production, there has to be love. Like it has to be full of love. The community, like all the union, there's like the union membership meetings should be packed with people, like excited, working together, creating. There should be alignment, like the film festivals. Everybody that communicates and touches Portland should leave feeling, oh man, that's the place I want to be. And I think that that's actually the number one role of the president. It's actually not to get productions, because productions is results oriented, and life doesn't work in results. It works in process. You have to have a process that gets the results you want. You know, if you want to be in shape tomorrow, say you want to bench 300 pounds tomorrow or something crazy, you know, I don't know, you like want to be really strong or run a mile in 5 minutes or something incredible, right? You're not going to do it by saying, all right, I'm just going to do it. No, you have to process, you have to train, you have to put a process in your life, the way you eat, the way you train your body, the way you sleep, right? How you spend your time. The things you don't do are just as important, maybe even more important than the things you do. Because you have to, if you're doing certain behaviors, it's going to undermine what your goals are. So the process in Portland, in my strong opinion, has to be community. It has to be unity. It has to be love. And if the community is going to decide to be a dumpster fire, it's going to decide to hate each other, then it's never going to happen. Which, you know, in some ways, like I'm an actor, I'm acting nationally. I have agents all around the country. So if Portland's going to be a dumpster fire, well, you know, then burn yourself down, right? And those of us who have maybe the talent or the connections to work other places, we will. But I want to work here, and I want to make this place the place. This is my home. It's where I was born and raised. So let's make that the place. You know what I mean? And it's got to start with love. It's got to start with community. So I think the number one goal of the president of our local and the board has to be creating unity. And then once that's done, as a part of that, then the productions can come in. Then the state of the city can change. That's my strong opinion. And so, yeah, how do we do that? Well, we do that through understanding each other and talking to each other and having candid conversations and having grace for each other and admitting when we're wrong and when we're stupid and when we've messed up. Because we all do it and I do it. And, you know, that's part of being human. But if we can, you know, be the empathetic people we claim to be as artists and say, man, I'm sorry. Like, I shouldn't have said that. Yeah, I'm sorry. Like, you've worked really hard and I just was frustrated because of, you know, my own issues in my life or whatever it may be. Then we can start to create the community that we all actually want. You know, I don't think we disagree too much on what we want, especially here in Portland. As a union membership, we want productions to come here. That's ultimately what we'd all love. We'd love to have a show we'd love to have 2 or 3 network shows shooting here. Grimm, Portlandia, Librarians. If those types of shows all happened at once, we'd all be happy. Well, how do we get there? And then that's the only thing we really are debating is how do we get there? And for me, as a servant leader, I'm like, I mean, my job is just to support everybody in bringing that. So I don't have any. If the community thinks path B, path Michelle is better than path Adam, okay, well, that's fine. I'm just an actor, man. I'm just an actor with some business experience that has a good heart for this. So that's my perspective on these things. So now we'll move into the drama things. And again, my goal is to help people understand the perspectives, and to try to create some unity and community. So, all right. Michelle Damis, she's the current president. I'm running against her. The locals got to choose one of us. So I want to first start with some very high praise of Michelle, because I think that's always a good place to start. I think she's very hardworking. I think she's very smart. I think she's given a lot of time and a lot of heart and a lot of energy to the Portland local. And I think she's earned, in some regards, a lot of respect and admiration from our local. I think it's time for a change, and I think I'm the better candidate. But I think that the way perhaps that certain things have been presented haven't been fairly understood by both sides. And so I'd like to kind of speak to what I perceive those to be about around Michelle. The first big issue, this thing that came out is she eligible to run? My current conclusion is she is eligible to run. The controversy, however, stems around the idea of her being a producer. So we have something in the SAG-AFTRA Constitution that says members who have a majority of their work from management aren't allowed to be in leadership. It makes perfect sense. It's a conflict of interest, right? Imagine if you're a waiter and you're trying to negotiate new contracts and someone who owns a restaurant is negotiating for you. You'd be like, wait, like maybe you don't want our pay to be as high. You know, it becomes a conflict. And if you're producing a film, your interests are not the same as the actors who want to get paid as much as possible and given the best, benefits and treatment on that film, because all that costs money. So it's kind of one and the same. Or it's kind of like, potentially a conflict of interest. And so originally there was some discussion that maybe she wasn't eligible, and she replied to it and the union decided she was eligible. However, it gets kind of tricky because per my understanding, what I read was that she basically said, I've only produced a couple things. It's not my main income, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not a producer. But then what's so weird about it is on her social media, she claims to be a producer, and she started a production company called One for All Productions. So it's like, from a performance standpoint, you're like, like you want to be a producer, you started a production company, but you're claiming you're not making enough money yet, so it's not a conflict of interest, but that's where you want to go. How do we know it's not a conflict of interest? And I think that those things can bubble up in either direction, and you could be dogmatic and say there's no conflict of interest, and you could be super dogmatic and say there's a super conflict of interest. And I think both of those are wrong. It's probably the middle ground. It's more like, how do we know there isn't a conflict of interest? And even if there isn't, it's directionally not accurate. We want leadership that's 100% dedicated to being performers. Like I like to say, if you're on a ship, you want your captain to say, I'm tied to the ship, not a captain that says, I'm on this ship until there's a better ship, right? And I think that Michelle, my perception, I could be wrong, but my perception is if Michelle could be a world-class, like huge movie producer, she would be. And my thing is I have no interest in being a producer. I want to be a world-class actor and a performer. So I think that's where kind of things get tricky. And I think she deserves more respect than she's been given in that regard, and more grace in that regard for sure. But I also think that I can see where there's been some questions about things there, given kind of wanting to be a producer, but also saying you're not a producer, but then wanting to be known as a producer. And it's kind of a tricky thing. I think that brings up another thing, is that she's the interim executive director of the OMPA, Oregon Media Production Association, who's charged with bringing productions to Portland and Oregon. But they're not charged with bringing only union productions. So now you're like, well, what now? Like, and she's just an interim, she's not the executive director, at least not yet. And so you're like, well, but wait, but how do we know you're going to serve the union and not other people, right? I mean, I don't know. Like at some point, if you're going to get enough money from the OMPA, if you become the executive director, it pays $75,000 a year, then you're like, wait a second, like, how do we know? So she and I had a brief exchange. She was talking about the tax incentive for Oregon. And I basically said, the tax incentive doesn't just serve union, it serves non-union. And she replied back and said, a majority of these productions have been union. And I said, well, can you please provide us a list and a breakdown? And she didn't provide it. And so it's those types of things you're just like, I mean, I think she's worked really hard and done some great work, but also you're just like, man, it's like, you can't help but at least have the perception of a potential conflict. And I think gets polarized unfairly, but it also has some merit to it. So that's kind of, I think, where that conflict comes from. If she's president, I think we should give her grace and assume that she's doing the best she can. And if I'm elected president, then there won't be a problem anymore. So I think that's really the path to unity for that one. The next thing, this one's been wild with her. It's been this perception of using her position to get work. So there was an email in 2020 that she was using her position as president to reach out to a producer and provide COVID protocols. She was using her position as president to reach out to a producer, and provide union COVID protocols, but also say, hey, have you thought about me and my husband to do stunts on your film? And the producer replied and said, this is highly inappropriate. I've seen it before, and I just haven't called you out on it. And she said, oh no, I was just giving you the offer, right? She kind of sidestepped it, but it was clearly inappropriate. And so the union investigated, said it wasn't a big deal, and she said she wouldn't do it anymore. The problem is there's people in the stunt community that think she has, and they think it's continued just in different ways. And a lot of people in the stunt community think that she's used her position as president to get jobs that she wouldn't otherwise have gotten, thus taking jobs from people in the community. Now, I think Michelle's position is like probably, I haven't done that. And her position is probably, look, at some point when you're a public person and you're well known, you just have connections and things come your way, right? Just because you're a senator and you know people and you make money from it doesn't mean you're necessarily corrupt in your senatorial position. I'm talking like in the national government. It's this weird thing. But we all know that if a senator goes from being a barista to being a multimillionaire in 2 years because they became senator, you're like, wait, like, this doesn't feel right. And so I think there's feelings that there's something not right because Michelle has gotten a lot of work since she's become the president. So there's kind of like that. I mean, I'm pretty much indifferent on it. It hasn't affected my life at all. And I think I don't like hearsay and stuff, but that's where the conflict's coming from. And again, I think if she's president, I think people should give her grace. And I have some other ideas, which I'll say in a second. Lastly, with Michelle, I think the biggest issue, kind of the canary of the coal mine, is that there's a lot of people that just don't like her. Now, I have a ton of grace for her in this because in my previous life, in the parkour world, I was hated by like thousands of people around the world. You can look it up. It's kind of crazy, like the drama that happened around me. So I've been in kind of these public positions and been hated a lot. What's interesting about my time in the parkour world was that nobody who worked with me hated me. It was only online people who had never met me. So if I look back on that, I'm like, oh, it's just online trolls and, internet's a crazy place and a bunch of immature communities and people and, misunderstandings. But there's a lot of people who have worked with Michelle that despise her. And that's a tough one for me to get over. I had a producer reach out to me. I won't say who or what context, but he wrote me and he said, I hope you take down Michelle. I hope you become the president. And I said, oh, are you a union member? Are you going to vote? And he said, I can't vote. I'm a producer, but she's the worst. And so, it's like my interactions with her in person have always been positive, but there's a lot of people that don't like her. And so the question kind of becomes like, what do you do about that? And so I think really the path to healing there is like, if I get elected, then we can start again. If I'm not elected and Michelle's elected, then I think the path for her is probably like radical transparency. There might be some apologies that are needed, maybe not, but there needs to be kind of like a deep discussion. I think these things have to be addressed. I think when there's conflict, I think it has to be addressed so it can be resolved. You can't just kind of like try to push it under the rug. And so I think there's some things there that could very powerfully help the community. Better communication, better grace. And of course, these are all intertangled with interpersonal relationships, some online stuff that happened that I'll get to with the SAG page, some other things. But anyway, I think that's kind of the drama around Michelle. And my ultimate view is the easiest way to resolve it is you elect me. If I'm not elected, then the easiest place is just, more transparency, more communication, more grace, and work together, everybody. Now, moving on, Erik Nicolaisen. All right. Erik's a good friend. He's running for VP against Scott Rogers. So those are really kind of the two battles happening in Portland, if you didn't know. Michelle versus Adam and Scott Rogers versus Erik, And I think the thing about Erik is there's probably no one on the planet more qualified as a Portland member to speak to national union issues. Not a single person on the planet, because he's born and raised in Portland, went to U of O, and has been a working performer for more than 25 years. He has a pension in our union. He's made more money as a performer than I think I've made in my whole life. And guess what? He's seen for 20 years every single contract we pass undermine our wages. Every single one. There's not many people out of our 700 or so members here in Portland that have as much skin in the game as him, who have given as much and have as much on the line. So when he comes out and says something, oh man, I don't think there's anyone that has the platform to refute it. And I'll give you an example, which will lead into our next issue as well. You have Scott Rogers, the current VP, who wasn't elected as a VP, by the way, which we'll get to. But Scott Rogers is the current VP, says, we're making historic gains with our contract. No, we haven't. We haven't. And if you're an actor and you do this at a high level, we haven't. We haven't. What's odd is it doesn't take a genius to figure that out. All you have to do is know the inflation numbers and know the day rate. And you're like, we're not making any advances. It's like historic rates. What are you talking about, you know? So Erik's going to come out and fight against someone like Scott because Scott isn't a performer, which we'll get to. And people are like, oh, like you're being so negative or da-da-da. And it's like, no. He's telling the truth because he's living this every day. And he's lived it every day for 25 plus years, right? And he could have been a lawyer and be, you know, and own a house in Malibu or something. Like he's that smart of an individual. But he wanted to be an actor because he loves this thing, you know? And so when he comes out and fights, you know there's nobody with a better heart for it and nobody with more experience in it. In Portland, I'm running for the board today. Not a single person. Not me. Nobody. Well, maybe Mary, you know. But we'll get to Mary too. She's great too. So it's like what I think that people need to realize is some of these things get really tricky. They get really tricky, which I think we'll get to more when we talk about Scott. But I think Erik's been accused of like putting negativity out there. And I think like, it's more like he's putting out the truth and the truth hurts and no one's more qualified. Like I'm seeing people who aren't even union members replying to Erik who know nothing, like not even involved. And you're like, what are you even talking about, man? Like you have no idea what you're talking about. Erik knows this stuff. He's lived this stuff. He's living this every day, you know? And so yeah, I think Erik's great. And I think in contrast to Scott, who I really like, I'll get to Scott in a second. It's not even a contest. It's like Erik is the guy, obviously. Yeah, Erik's awesome. So that's my opinion on Erik, and I think his passion is sometimes misunderstood. But sometimes people think it's negative, but it's not. It's the truth, and yeah, maybe Erik could be nicer sometimes, but like I said, I think his things are rooted in the truth. And they're rooted in someone who's living this every single day of his life and has lived it for decades. And so we'd be wise to listen to him because his instincts, I've never seen his instincts be wrong. He's like a gifted lawyer mind and in like an actor's industry. And oh man, he's just on point all the time. So Erik is absolutely great. And I think, yeah, that's what I think. All right, moving on. What's the next issue? Oh yeah, Scott Rogers. All right. Let's start with some high praise of Scott Rogers. I was in Scott Rogers' class from in summer 2019 into early 2020 when COVID hit. Then his classes went online. I didn't want to be in an online class, so I stopped out of his class. Scott is a great coach. He's a great actor's director. I've always had in my mind that when I had, you know, the finances and I got the right job, I'd bring him on set to coach me because he's really great. Jolly man. I think of him as like a jolly, like half Buddha, half Santa Claus. That's how I think of Scott, and always liked him. Until this election, I've started to kind of question some of his motives. So that's what we'll get to. But, you know, Scott's been on the boards for Hawaii and now Portland for many, many years. He spends a lot of time studying the contracts. He's very knowledgeable. And I think his heart is in the right place in wanting to serve the union and wanting to serve actors. His daughter is an actor, I think, or at least she was. I think she probably still is. And his wife's an actor, Janine. I've taken a workshop from Janine and enjoyed it and learned a lot from her. So yeah, a family that's in that world, and I think Scott's heart is in the right place. Here are my thoughts. Yeah. My thoughts are that the union has to be for performers by performers. It's a first principle. It's like when you reduce the union down to what it needs to be, it has to be run by performers. It has to be. If it's not, then what are we? Like I had this thought experiment. I was like, what if there was an AI god that knew all the answers and always made the right decisions? And I know we'll get to AI later, but you know, what would we do? What if I could put that AI god in charge of the union? Would I do it? No. Why? Because I want the union to be run by performers. And you know what I would do? I would have that AI god be an advisor. And I'd kind of run my ideas through them and like ping the AI god. Scott's not a performer. He's not a performer. And he's never been a dedicated SAG-AFTRA performer. And so it's this weird thing of like, I think Scott would be a great advisor for sure. If he wasn't an advisor, I'd be thrilled with having him be a board member if there wasn't other performers that wanted to be a board member. Same with VP. If there was nobody who wanted to be VP, I'd be like, sure, why not? but there's a performer who wants to be a VP. So in my opinion, there's really no debate there. Now, that's kind of that view. One more thing I want to say is I'm not sure if Scott actually wants to be VP. He wasn't elected as VP. He was a board member that got moved up into VP when there was a vacancy. And I think he probably thought, well, I'm VP now, I might as well run again. So the thing is, if Scott was just a board member, there probably wouldn't be any talk about him. And he'd probably just get voted in as a board member. But now he's in the VP position against Erik Nicolaisen, who is the clear, obvious choice for VP. And now all of a sudden there's grenades flying and stuff. And as you know, maybe Scott's like, crap, I didn't want to be in this position. I just want to be a board member and help. I don't even want to be VP, but now I'm here and I got to defend myself. It's very possible that's his viewpoint. And so he's like, I'm being unfairly attacked. And it's like, yeah, it's unfair. And yet at the same time, when you choose to put yourself out there, it happens. And so anyway, I think there's grace for that as well. I'm not sure if he actually wants to be a big leader in the union. He might just want to help. And now he's like, oh crap. Now because I want to help, I got to fight to help because I'm trying to be of service. And now if I lose the election, crap, then I can't help. And so now it's like, these fights start sometimes when nobody wants to fight, but then both sides end up fighting. And that could very well be the situation. But there are some interesting motives with Scott that I've kind of noticed. And I'll tell you the first one. The first one is that when he found out I was running, he blocked me on Facebook. And then he blocked me on multiple Portland actor Facebook pages, which he runs. I'm not exactly sure of that, but I can't find the pages anymore. My friends can find them. I can't find them. And it happened right when he blocked me. So either there was a coordinated effort with like Michelle or, one of his students or something who runs the pages, or it's just coincidence. But in either case, he definitely blocked me, which I was like, whoa. Like I was like your student for like 6 months. I've only said high things about you, high praise about you. I've never spoken negatively about you to anybody because I don't have anything negative to say about you because I think you're a good coach. Now you're blocking me, and you're blocking an actor from Portland who's lately one of the most successful actors in Portland from my community, from my acting pages. Like, wait a second, you're not in this to serve. Because going back to my perspective, I'm like, I'm just here to serve, right? And if I can serve, then I want to do that. But if not, it's okay. Like, I'm just here to serve, Why would I fight someone to make dinner for you? Like, you want someone else to make dinner for you for free? Have them make dinner for you for free, Here's what I make. If you want me, great. If not, choose a different chef, So as soon as someone starts doing that, I'm like, whoa. And the problem is he's not a performer, which is the bigger thing. So, well, not the bigger thing, but it ties in. So let's go to the performer aspect. He was accused of not being a performer ever. It's where things start to get kind of dubious. He replied, felt the need to reply, and said, no, I was an Actors Equity. I'm a pensioned member. I have a pension. He really put I think it was in the 70s or something, might have been 70s, early 80s. He's like, I was in Actors Equity, I was an actor, and I got a pension, and then I joined the union, the SAG-AFTRA union in 75, and then started working as a coach and decided that, I didn't want to compete with my students, so I stopped auditioning. I'm like, no. Here's the story. When I was in Scott's class, he told a story. This is how I remember the story being told. It could be slightly off, it could be a bad memory, but this is what I remember him saying. He said, we asked him if he had acted before. And he said, I did a play once in my early 20s, realized it wasn't for me, and stopped acting. I had someone looked, did I ask? I don't remember, but someone told me they think he's done 2 plays. So you were never a dedicated performer if you only did 2 plays in your early 20s, 40 years ago. And back then, I did some research, and you could become a union of Actors Equity if you worked for 50 weeks. So, maybe he did a play for a year, which would be commendable, right? But it's telling that he didn't say what plays he did. If he said, I did Hamlet for 2 years, decided it wasn't for me anymore, then I'd be like, oh, wow, great. Wait, maybe he was like an understudy or something like that, or had like 4 lines in a play or something for a year, Now he's like, I was an actor, and you're just like, dude, like, just be what you are. Just be what you are. You're not a performer. You're not a performer. And those lead into all other things, like Hulk Hogan died, and he called Hogan a scab. And I was like, to be frank, I was like, dude, F you, man. I was like, you've never been a performer. You've never contributed like 1 cent towards the pension of the union brothers and sisters we're in. And you're going to call someone a scab for working off the card? It's like, F you, man. It's like, you're not a performer, man. You're not a performer. And you want to be a leadership in a union for performers. And you're basically making snide comments about someone who died, who was a performer. It's like, who do you think you are, man? And that's when you start to realize, like, there's something weird here. There's something weird here. And that's a problem. It's like, Scott's real position needs to be, look, I've never really been an actor. Did a couple plays. Wasn't for me. I became a coach. But guess what? I love actors. My daughter's an actor. My wife's an actor. I've spent decades going over these union contracts. I'm so knowledgeable. I think I'm the right person to serve you. That should be his perspective. But then he wants the cachet of being known as a performer. Oh yeah, I was a performer once. I even have a pension. And then you're just like, dude, your motives, just tell the truth. Don't hide behind these words like pension. Tell us what plays you did, what your role was, and what really happened, right? It's nice to say, oh yeah, I stopped auditioning because I didn't want to be competition for my fellow students. It's like, F you, man. You weren't competition for your students. You weren't competition. Nobody wanted to hire you, and you were good at coaching, and you took that easy path, You have no idea what it's like to struggle for 20 years, to struggle for 25 plus years like Erik or 18 years like me, and audition constantly and get turned down again and again and again and again, and then finally get a role, and then see your wages suppressed by someone who wasn't a performer who said it's a historic gains, and it's like, bull crap, it was not historic gains. It's like, you have no idea what it's like to live that. And maybe your daughter's living it, and maybe your wife lived it, and it's like, bravo, have them run. Be on the sidelines and be an advisor, So these things kind of piss me off, like, because when you're a performer and you have someone else who's like fighting to help make decisions for your life, but they've never lived your life, you're like, what the F? Dude, just like go start like an acting coaches union or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, get out of our union. Like, if, so it's just like, again, if there's no performers running, I'm like, yeah, we'd love to have him as an advocate. But it's like, I just think, here's the way to healing. The way to healing is this. Erik wins. That's the easiest way to healing, right? The second way is Scott wins and he resigns. Like, boom, problem off the table. The third option is Scott wins, and then next time around, he's like, look, I just want to be a board seat. I don't want to be VP because I'm just here to serve. And you're like, bravo. Another way to win is he's like, yeah, I'm in VP, but I'm just going to be honest with everybody. This is my truth. I'm not a performer. I never have been, except for this play I did when I was like 40 years ago, before I even knew who I was, decided it wasn't for me. But I know a lot, and I want to help, And also stop disparaging other performers when they die. I think that was just an awful look and very unbecoming for a leader. So you mix all these things together and you're like, okay, well, Scott's a great coach, no doubt. He knows a lot, no doubt. His heart's in the right place, no doubt. But there's just other things that you're like, this doesn't add up. Like, the heart doesn't seem like it's in the right place. And so that's kind of my view on that one. And I think that's probably pretty fair. Yeah. Again, maybe Scott didn't want to run as VP, but he was VP. So he's like, okay, well, I guess I'll run, And so maybe this is a whole conflict that doesn't need to be a conflict. And there's no easy way to change it because he can't be like, all right, Erik, you be VP, I'll be board, And there's no way to really do that or something. So I don't really know. But those are my concerns about Scott. I think they're all very fair. And I think, And the other thing too is like, it's just, I think it leads into some of the Michelle stuff as well. Is the thing I've learned about life is that the good people are the ones that are very open, and the people who aren't good, I know that's pretty dogmatic, but I think you'll get the idea, are the people who do stuff underhandedly, right? And I think that's very hard to differentiate because you get someone like Erik, who in my mind is clearly good, and people are accusing him of being negative. And then you get someone like Scott, and I had a friend reach out to me and they said, I think people should run a campaign like Scott. It's very positive. And I'm like, he blocked me? He blocked me from multiple acting pages that he controls. And the reason he probably did that was because then I wouldn't be able to post and contradict him because I was in his class and I know what he told us in his class. And again, maybe, I don't know if that's exactly what happened, but you realize like, oh yeah, how do narcissists rise to power? Underhanded approaches. And then when you're the good person and you tell the truth, like that person's a narcissist, so they're lying. Everyone's like, why are you negative? And then you get fired and the narcissist gets promoted. It's like, guys, like you realize how this world works. The bad people use underhanded approaches. Good people are honest and transparent. You know, anytime somebody wants, I'll have a conversation with them in person. Anytime somebody wants. Scott wants to talk, Michelle wants to talk, you want to have a debate, I'm there for it. I don't think they're the same because they can't answer the question. So they do the underhanded approach, which is like block Adam. You know, hide behind the fact that I have a pension when the truth was back then anyone could get a pension. You just like walked into a theater and said, hey, can I be an understudy? Sure. And then you got a pension, you know. I don't know if that's how it was, but it was a different world back then where you could walk in to a hardware store, get a job because you had a smile on, and then you could support your whole family off of like a normal job. It's not that way anymore. And it's not the same way in our union where it's virtually impossible to earn a pension in our union now. So he's hiding behind this idea of a pension because he wants the cachet of how difficult it is to get a pension. And he didn't do 1/100th of what it takes now to get a pension. And you're like, that's disingenuous at best. And it's overt narcissistic lying at worst. Like, that's just how those things break down. It's somewhere on that spectrum, you know? And the controversy comes from us disagreeing on where on the spectrum that is. And so I just think these are things that people don't realize about life for some reason. I don't know. But when I put myself in people's shoes, those are the things I find. So it's worth thinking about. All right, going on to MaryMac. MaryMac is part of this Portland. Okay. MaryMac is, I might go sit down. This is getting tired of my arms. MaryMac is part of the Portland comeback crew. There's 5 of us. And frankly, I think most of the negativity started when we announced ourselves and people said, Adam, you're aligned with MaryMac. I even had a friend reach out to me. You're aligned with MaryMac. She doesn't have a great reputation, da-da-da-da-da-da. Look, here's my thoughts on MaryMac. First of all, MaryMac's been very good to me. I hired her as my accent coach for one of the first films I did, and I think it was 2017, maybe 2016, a long time ago. She helped me recently on my accent for Law & Order Organized Crime. She's always been good to me. I usually judge people by how they treat me. It's very simple. And that's why I was a fan of Scott until he blocked me. And then I realized, oh, okay, you know. But if he had never blocked me, I mean, but maybe I just needed more. I needed more data. I tell my wife, you need more data sometimes about people. You know, you have a limited experience. You need more information to draw the picture. But anyway, back to Mary. She's always been good to me. I knew there was some controversy because she's very outspoken. She's kind of sometimes puts herself in a love me or hate me situation. And in a very charged kind of world, especially with online social media, it's very easy to choose the I hate Mary, but she's always been good to me. I think she's a very principled person. She puts principles over everything, and that's a very admirable thing that not many people do. In fact, I only know a few people in the world that I would consider principled, and Mary's one of them. So for example, she's a free speech absolutist. She basically believes that everyone can have whatever opinions they want, and they should be allowed and not judged for the opinions they have. And I think that's a very admirable view. And so in that, she expresses her views, and some people don't like her views, but she defends her right. She defends your right to say whatever you want as much as she defends her right to say what she wants. I think that's one perspective that some people don't like in today's world. They think that speech should be controlled and you shouldn't be allowed to say certain things. But Mary's view is the opposite, that people should be allowed to say what they want, and she lives by that. And so it's very admirable. She's been accused of being a transphobe. She's not a transphobe. I've talked to her. She's not a transphobe. She said some things online that I think were harsh. And I've only seen them during the campaign. So after we announced that we were in a slate together, it was only after that I saw the things that she had said. And the things I saw weren't in context, though. They were just snippets. And the problem is any quote taken out of context can be anything. Like you can literally say, no one should ever say this. And then you say something. And then someone can snip that and say, they said this. And it's like, you did say that, but you didn't say that. You said this. You know what I mean? So I think it's very difficult to quote people, and also very difficult in the same way with all of the things I'm saying. Some of this stuff is very hearsay. And it's very difficult to be dogmatic about something you heard somebody else say, especially when it's something they heard someone else say. You know, it's like the further the telephone game goes, the more unclear it is. So the clearest communication we can have is together, is talking to each other. And then everything is a less precise, right? Less true version of that. And so I don't like, trying to judge someone when I have years of experience with someone. They've always been good to me. They've shown themselves to be principled, as Mary is. And then someone gives me a quote that they said on some other social platform that that I don't go to, that I'm like, I mean, that seems like that's a kind of a mean thing to say, but I'm just kind of like in no man's land. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, say someone hasn't been good to me for 7 years because of something that you're saying they said. It's just kind of a weird situation. So I like Mary a lot. I think she's the queen bee of Portland in a lot of ways. There's no one that cares more about the union than her. And I don't mind being aligned with her at this time. It could change like anything. I think we're dynamic people, and I think we have to give each other the grace to change, to be different, and say, oh yeah, that's who I was, but I'm not that way anymore. That's what I thought, and I'm not that way anymore. And that's so much me. Like when I look back at some of the ideas I had 10 years ago, I'm like, oh man, like I'm a completely different person today, And I try to keep my views of people current, right? So I have no problem just liking someone today and then liking them in a year, and vice versa. I have no problem liking someone today and disliking them in a year. When people show who they are, and you find more data in their behavior, then you can update your algorithm, so to speak. You can update your opinions of them. And so my current opinion of Mary is that she cares very much about the union. She's as knowledgeable and as experienced as anyone. And she's always been a friend of mine. So that's my view on her. I think the other perspective would be that, I don't know what the other perspective is. Taking words out of context and assuming she's a hateful person. No, not at all. Here's an idea to think about. I've learned this in life. Hurt people. So this is the grace I try to give to people as much as I can, especially when I'm still trying to gather data or I don't have personal experiences with them. When people lash out, I think, what's going on in their life that could cause this? Because happy, successful, joyous people don't lash out at other people. They don't. Like, why would you, right? If you're in a vibration of love and joy, then the other stuff just doesn't make sense. Which most of this drama makes no sense to me. I think I'm just in this vibration that's so it's so innocent in some ways. It's so pure. It's so loving that I'm like, I mean, like I said, if you guys don't want me as president, that's fine. Like I got other things to do in life, It's gonna give me more time to be a better actor. You know what I mean? So it's like, whatever. So all this drama, I'm kind of like, this is so weird. Like, why are people, indulging in the drama? And yet, of course, I could be accused of indulging it myself because of being in a slate of people who have said things that some people don't agree with, and things get tangled and stuff. And that's why I'm trying to untangle it a little bit and help people see different points of view. So that's MaryMac. Yeah. All right. Next thing, I think we got 3 more things. SAG-AFTRA Portland page, the trolls and the minions, and my role. So SAG-AFTRA Portland page. MaryMac, I believe, started the unofficial SAG-AFTRA Portland page. And then drama ensued. Why? Well, culture bled into the SAG-AFTRA page. Per my understanding, I did not see much of this. I'm not on Facebook very much. Michelle started posting more or less political diatribes against Trump. And the rules of the page were something like, no politics here, stick to union matters, no ad hominem attacks. It was something like that. And Michelle, the active president of Portland SAG-AFTRA, started doing this. Mary warned her and said, please don't do this. This is against our page rules. If you continue, you will be banned. And I think I saw the post. Michelle responded and said something like, but what if he's an asshole? She was basically saying, if what I'm saying is true, or if what I'm saying I believe to be true, can I still say it? And Mary was like, no, the rules are the rules. Doesn't matter who it is. We will stay away from these sorts of discussions on our page. Well, Michelle didn't stop. She continued it. So Mary banned her because she violated the rules, because no one is above the rules, because Mary is principled like that. So then that just started a dumpster fire, because then the minions or the trolls or the friends of Michelle got really mad and turned against Mary and turned against the page. And so the page just turned into this crazy dumpster fire. So I think this is what happened. So then Mary just closed down the page. She's like, there's too much drama. We're closing down the page. So the page is closed down, right? It's the one place where all the SAG-AFTRA members are, and the page got closed down. So we're going into the election, and the Portland, the Portland comeback crew, us 5 were chatting, and we were like, Mary, should we open up the page so we can communicate with people? And Mary said, nope, the page, nope, that's not what the page is for. We're not going to do it. And okay, we were fine. And then things went on, and then Scott blocks me from multiple Portland actor pages, basically limiting my reach to speak to the things I want to speak to. And all of a sudden we were like, whoa, wait. if Michelle and Scott are doing underhanded tactics, right? Like literally like banning actors from acting from their community, right? Like good-natured actors like Adam who just want to serve. If you're going to ban him, then maybe we should open up the page and just let anyone post what they want to post, like return the page to what it is. So Mary was like, him-hawing. She wasn't sure. And I don't know why, but she said, okay, sure. So she opens up the page and then we start posting. Everyone's allowed to post, and we wanted everyone to post. We're like, we want Michelle on here. We want Scott on here. Like, people post your opinions, post your candidacy, post your videos. Like, let this be the page where the community gets to see every candidate and make their own decisions, right? Well, no one else posted. Only the Portland comeback crew posted. And then a couple trolls came in, which I don't want to get too much into, but started posting some stuff. And then they were doing ad hominem attacks. And then they got banned. And so then it was just like, oh my gosh, it's a dumpster fire again. Like, what's going on? It's just like, it seems to be unending. Of course, the other perspective is like, well, Erik's posts about Michelle, being a producer and using her position, like that's an ad hominem attack. And it's like, maybe it is. I don't know. So, there is like some nuance there, and there is some perspective. And this is why Mary ultimately is a free speech absolutist, because, if you're not a free speech absolutist, then someone has to be in charge of what speech is allowed. And if someone's in charge that you don't like, how are you going to get treated fairly? So it's a very principled approach, and not everyone understands that, but I'm more or less a free speech absolutist as well. But then the ad hominem attacks get really weird, like I don't really know how to deal with that. But anyway, that's the drama of the SAG-AFTRA Portland page, and I'm not sure if it will continue. Seems like those have been, I don't know. People aren't posting very much on that page anymore, but that's kind of the drama behind that page. All right, last thing. Oh no, the trolls and the minions. So yeah, this will be really quick. What we've realized is a lot of the people stirring up dust in the Portland acting community aren't union members. They're either not union members, or they're not actors, or they're not actors in Portland. It's really strange. Like when you start to delve into, like there's like 5 people that have been, it's probably the Pareto distribution where, 20% of the people are making 80% of the comments. And outside of the Portland comeback crew, all the comments that I've seen have been from like 4 people. And then after we started seeing their names, we were like, I wonder who these people are. And we looked into it and we're like, oh, that person's not even an actor. Oh, that person doesn't even live here. Oh, that person's not a union member. It's crazy. It's crazy. So like, I have this theory that's something like, if 1% of the population of anything is aligned, they can destroy the community. And I think if you had 3 million people actively aligned, you could destroy the United States very, very quickly. It doesn't take very much. And then all of a sudden, everyone's pulled into that negativity. They think it's real. But the truth is you just have this contagion. You have like a 1% contagion that's taking down everything. And so I think that's kind of what we might be dealing with in Portland is we might be in a position where actually, 80% plus of us here, we just want to act and focus on the craft and bring productions here and support each other. And then maybe we have 19% of people who are like, a little bit, extreme to one side or the other. And then you get like the half on each extreme who are like, burn it down, like I'm going to create drama. I'm going to create rumors. And it's like, these people have to be avoided. They have to be called out, and they have to be, I don't want to say isolated, but it's like that type of thing. It's like, this person is a drama queen. Everyone knows it. And we're not going to take anything she says seriously. And there's someone in this community who's been posting a lot of stuff, and it's like, she's clearly a drama queen. And I think everyone probably knows it. And that person's not being a positive contributor to our community. She's not even trying to. She's trying to do the opposite. She's trying to tear people down. She's trying to tear the community down. And I think those people need to be called out. How is that different from someone like Erik, who's stating opinions about Michelle? I'm not exactly sure. Maybe I'm biased, but I'm not here to tell you what the answer is. I'm here to tell you a perspective, and these things can be discussed. And I think when we discuss them, then we can find, community and love for each other. So the last thing, what's my role in the controversy? Well, I'm not sure. I didn't think I was really involved in the controversy, but then I had a friend who wrote me and said, Adam, I voted for you, but I wish you had kind of stayed out of things. And I was like, what did I get into? And I think what I got into was, I think when I saw certain posts from Erik or June, or from Mary and stuff, I would come in and kind of give a balanced perspective of it, I felt like. but maybe they weren't balanced, or maybe it was a little, I don't know, maybe there was, I don't know what it was. I haven't gone back and read them, but I felt like everything I've written has been really fair and you know, it states an opinion that maybe people don't agree with, but it's a fair opinion. So I'm not really sure what controversy I've been in. I do think that if I made any missteps, it was in supporting the fact that Michelle wasn't eligible to run. I think she is eligible to run. I think it's kind of a sticky issue, and so my apologies for that. I think she's eligible to run, and if I could somehow like snap my fingers and retract those things, I would. I think where those things get tricky, obviously, is like, well, she's eligible to run, but like she's also not being transparent with her dealings in the production world. So how do we know she's eligible to run? This is kind of a smoking gun. It's dubious at best. And so, no, I think there's validity to those things, but I think if I said those dogmatically, then I'm apologizing. That was my mistake for sure, and could have been kinder and more graceful. And I think that's probably a good place to end, because I think that's ultimately what we need to be kinder with each other and more graceful with each other, and we need to listen to each other. And I think that most things can be resolved. Some things may not be. You know, I wonder if there's some people in our community that are so politically, what's the word for it? They're so politically radicalized that they won't work with other people who have different political beliefs. You know, and I've seen some of those people that seem to be that way in our community, and those are probably irreconcilable differences, right? If you voted for a presidential candidate that I didn't vote for, and I think you're an awful person now, then we just have different views about the world. And I'm not that type of person personally. I think we live in a place where everyone's allowed to have their view, and that's what makes it great, is we can have different views, and we will have different views. We don't have to support those views, but we need to support each other's right to have those views. That's my view. But then, of course, like, no, there's all sorts of exceptions to the rule. Like, if you think the person in charge is Hitler, then maybe you have the exception to the rule now. And now if you're supporting Hitler, now you're the Nazi. You know, it's like things get really convoluted. And I don't know. I don't know how much of it is true. Like, I just live in Portland. I live in the Portland world. I'm an actor. I try to help people around me. I try to be kind and graceful. And I think that's kind of like my MO. But if that's not your MO, then things get really complicated really quick, you know. But that gets into ego and spirituality. So, all right, gonna leave it there and just say that I think there's a path forward. And I think in all of these issues, if we listen to each other, there's a path forward. And I think if we find the path forward, and if we focus our community on being kind to each other and working together and loving each other, then I think we're gonna have the best chance of bringing Portland back to what it used to be, to revitalizing our city. And I think we can do it with the right leadership. And I think we'll get there one way or another. So we'll talk to you soon.